You're watching Real Simple News with Cale McCullough. And today I'm going to tell you the story of how I helped start the 2016 Portland anti-Trump protest back when I lividly hated Donald Trump, and how I left the radical left and I joined the Walk Away movement. So, long time ago, I'm an engineer and I'm an entrepreneur and I work from home. And so I used to watch CNN and MSNBC all the time. And I thought they were actually legitimate news sources, but as it turned out, they were brainwashing me. I'm from Eugene, Oregon, and I was always a feminist male. I really believed in equality of all sexes and all this like hippie bullshit, because Eugene's pretty hippied out. Like, you want to talk about some crazy hippies, bro? We got you all topped. So I used to hate Republicans because I thought that they were racist and sexist. And I'm trying to remember when exactly this whole thing started, because I didn't even know this until maybe like some number of months ago, but it was actually the Democrats who actually were the party that owned the slaves. They started the KKK and they opposed women's suffrage. And they were actually the party that passed the 1994 crime bill that put so many minorities in jail, and had no idea that the black people are actually voting for the Democrats because the crime's so bad in their neighborhood. I just thought that because the Republicans started the war on drugs, that they were like the ones who did it. Like, they're the only ones at fault, right? That's the problem with the left. It's always this really, really, really simplistic thinking that they have, where they're like all black people are the same. All Latinos are the same. So this is how the protest started. I was a student at Portland State University in the engineering school, and I used to be a student ambassador a long time ago, and then I ran out of financial aid, was running my own company, and had a class where I was relying on teammates, and they all failed. They all like bungled it up, and I did all the work, and then I ran out of financial aid, and then the team just burned me. I did all the work, and so I just didn't go to the final. They all got good grades, and then I failed. So dropped out of school for a while, go back into school. Been going through a traumatic child custody hearing. I had this what's called legal abuse syndrome. I was dragged through the court so much through traumatic situations that I had to be my own lawyer, and it's just traumatic. And so had all this stress, and I got back into school, and the night of the protest, I was really butthurt that that Donald Trump was going to win, because I thought that he's racist, and he said grab her by the pussy, so he's like sexist. And I was really bummed out because I just failed a test. And so I was walking back to my dorm room, and I saw like a group of butthurt liberals out like having a good time. Everybody's all like, pouting about how much their pussy hurts. And I was too. Also, my pussy hurt and my butt hurt. So I went over and I was pouting with them. And then I went over and got some beer. And it's like a barbecue thing. And so I used to throw raves. I'm really good at getting everybody up dancing. And I started getting the crowd riled up because I do that. I really hated Donald Trump. I'm like, fuck Donald Trump, fuck Trump, fuck Trump, fuck Trump. And so eventually somebody was like, let's hit the streets, run. And then we like mobbed with like, I don't know, I'm gonna say it was like maybe 30 people or something. And then we're walking down what I think was 6th Avenue in Portland, because there was a Max line on it. That's how I remember what street we were on. And we started snowballing, getting more and more people. And before this, hold on. Right before we started, there was some lawyers that were giving out their phone number at the barbecue. And they were like, if you get in trouble, call this number. And so this gave us an air of like, we're invincible. So we're walking down 6th Street. We start like shutting down Max lines. And I think at that point in time, the newspapers were out taking pictures of us. I don't know. We shut so many Max lines out. I got some pictures of me in the BBC shutting down Max lines. But so we end up making it out to the highway. Well, I think the reason why we were all pissed off was because of all those Dakota Access Pipeline protests, which I was really against. But I don't know. I don't know what to say about that one. I was really against that. I have not reevaluated my position now that I'm a Republican. I do think the way they went about it was not appropriate. It was dirty. Even in hindsight, it caused a lot of problems. It made people really, really mad. So we're walking down, we're like shutting down traffic, and then we like start making it out to the highway. And that's what this picture that you're seeing behind us is. It's a picture from the cops had like showed up. We were like going down the highway, and then the cops stop us and they're like determining what they're going to do with us. And this is like a standoff on I-5. And then I'm screaming like, "Are we free to leave, officer? Officer, are we free to leave?" And then they stood down. It seemed like I was the one that made them stand down, but it was later on I discovered it was the mayor that told them to stand down. So it was not me. So that moment, I really regret that the cops they escorted us. Which, hold on, it's not good to give it off the highway. I mean, you got to get us off the highway, right? But they should have shut it down and been a little bit. Going with what the people doing lots of illegal activities are doing, because I was pretty drunk myself. Like a lot of other people were drinking too. Probably not a good idea to allow these people to do whatever they want. So this protest starts going, it's going for days, and then Black Lives Matter starts taking over the protest. I remember there was this guy, and I think his name was Greg Melvin. No, 100%. The name sticks in my mind. He's like half black, half white, and he was like a professional protester. He got trained up at some different protests, Black Lives Matter protests, on how to protest. And these people, every single time they have one of these protests, they get more and more trained on how to do this. And that is a very, very scary thing right there. Because the more and more they start repeating these chants and lies, the more they actually believe the lies. Because what's happening is they're getting fed this propaganda. I'm a computer scientist and I'm an entrepreneur. I run a company called the A Startup, and I make software that uses artificial intelligence to modify your psychology. So I'm not an expert at this, but I do own a business that makes software that does it, so I can tell you how it works. What they're doing is they're implanting what are called reflex agents into your mind. And what they do is they're trying to maximize the amount of ads that you watch. Not the number, the amount, because it's the amount of time. The amount of time that you're watching paid ads. And so they've been pissing you off, making you isolated and depressed, and then making it so that your social group is on Facebook. And they then feed you ads. And what people don't understand, because all the wham men are saying these women are underpaid, but the reality of the situation is that 2/3 of the college graduates coming out are women. women actually control almost 2/3 of the wealth in the United States. Might as well just say 2/3 because it's going up to 2/3 real quick. They control 85% of consumer spending. And this is the key. That's what you must understand, is this is the fundamental lie that they have propped up in the mainstream media, is that women are underpaid. And men work on average 50 minutes more per day than women do, yet women control 2/3 of the wealth. So obviously something's going wrong here. And the answer is that women are beautiful in college and they're awesome and everybody wants to study with them and they get really good grades, and high five. Whoopsh. Yeah, high five for getting those good grades. Women are doing everything right? But because they're hot, the older guys are the only ones that have enough money to date them. Like the dudes their age like are broke and like they're just study buddies. But then the women get stuff paid for by older people, and then they have stuff given to them, and women start to see, they say the poor women, they only start 17% of startups, except for they own 43% of businesses. So obviously there's a discrepancy in between how many businesses are starting and how many businesses they own. And that's because they're hot and they're awesome. And once they get with a guy who has money, they teach them how to do that, how to make money. So the white guys in particular, like they're getting stomped because they are the target. The white guys are the targets. You have to understand that white males are the majority of the fighting age men in the United States. And what you have to understand, what does this have to do about the protest? So they've been feeding these targeted ads to white feminists. They're called white feminists because they're feminists who focus mainly on white women issues. And what this does is it basically, it creates a system where like the white woman's up at the top. And there's this thing called white woman tears, where like white women will like break down if a black woman like comes up and like tells her she does something wrong at work. If it's like her boss, like a white woman will like break down crying because they can't take no criticism because they wham man. So they've been feeding the wham man targeted ads, trying to convince them that they're underpaid so that they'll go ask their boss at work for a raise, dude. You have to understand this whole thing is a money-making scheme. All about it. So they've been feeding these ads to the first demographic that they're trying to target here with these ads is the white feminists, because they have the majority of the money. The second demographic is the Latinos. And so I worked as a engineering and outreach ambassador for Portland State University. I hired minorities, and they told me very specifically we weren't looking for the black kids because their grades weren't good enough. We were looking for women, Latinos, and Asians. And I didn't really think anything of it at the time. But now that I know more about how to brainwash people with boogeyman propaganda, now I know what they've been doing is they've been feeding targeted ads to the women on Facebook, convincing them that they're not getting paid enough so they can get more money because they're the customer. That's who they're targeting. The other customer is the black demographic. You got to look at these, you got to look at the Democrats and the ivory tower liberals are what they called. Those are like liberals with high paying jobs who work up in the ivory tower, which is a metaphor. Typically they work up in skyscrapers, but sometimes they're working not in skyscrapers, but they have like really fancy jobs. And to them, like reality's not the same. So these people are on Twitter and Facebook are just trying to get likes, and they're trying to get you to watch their ads, buy their product, and vote for them. They don't care. They'll tell you whatever you want to hear in order to get you to click like and vote for them. And they've been sending people this boogeyman propaganda, convincing them that white police officers are targeting black men. And so that's where these Black Lives Matter people, they're all getting brainwashed by marketing. And you have to understand the order of the priorities of who they're targeting by how much money the people have and who you have to pander to get the Latinos to be on your side, because the Democrats. So what does this have to do about the thing? So these protests are going on. I'm getting sidetracked. And people are starting to get amped up because they're organizing on Facebook. They're getting sent once the Democratic Party gets word that BLM, like a black man was shot, the Democratic Party starts sending out targeted boogeyman propaganda. And what that means is it's advertisements meant to paint you as a boogeyman. So getting back to the reflex agent and what they're doing with the reflex agents, with this totally dirty. Okay, so what they do, so there's called a run boogeyman, attack boogeyman, and a boogeyman savior. So the run boogeyman is wherever there are, they present a group of people as the boogeyman, but that group of people is so large that you can't speak out against them because there's a perception that you might lose the battle. Like it's a few to many relationship. So there's few of you, there's many of them, and they could win. So what they've been doing is they've been showing you this boogeyman propaganda called run boogeyman propaganda, where they basically they piss you off, they make you isolated, depressed, and they show you all these images of police brutality. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get the women the men to purchase subscriptions to like Newsweek or whatever other places demonize men's rights and incels and the other boogeyman, because and then there's a white nationalist boogeyman. This is what you have to understand. There's the imaginary misogynistic pig imp boogeyman from the Southern Poverty Law Center and MSNBC, the one that mistreats the woman, locks them up, beats them, rapes them, won't let them vote, and puts burkas over their head. And then you got the white nationalist, which is the dude with the hood up over the head. And what they're not telling you is that like Democrats started the KKK, right? So these people, these Black Lives Matter people, right? They live in the city, right? So in the city, they have lots of crime. Almost all major cities are controlled by Democrats. You can look it up. And so the places where these people are getting shot at are Democrat cities. So these people are blaming everything on Republicans. They say that Trump is like this like racist, sexist dude who's gonna like, he's like a neo-Nazi who's gonna like bring us into World War III. Like the stuff these people say is like crackpot. So back to the protest, all right. The protest was going on for days, and then the day that the rioting happened, I was back in my dorm room, and then I walked back to the protest, and the vandalism had started. I missed that. They vandalized some big car lot. I think it was a BMW car lot. Don't quote me on that. And they were coming towards the place where the first standoff with the cops happened, which was like over the Washington Bridge or something. I don't know. And I remember walking up, and there was this Black Lives Matter woman who was with all of the other Black Lives Matter protesters, and like she's like falling in front of the person. She was like doing something like, this is sanctioned. No, don't stop. It's Black Lives Matter, sanctioned it. And like some la-di-da hippie thing. Like I've seen a lot of I'm from Oregon. We got the Oregon Country Fair here. It was like some la-di-da hippie shit, dude. And so then the people come behind her, start like burning shit and trashing everything, pulling out trash cans. And one of the biggest regrets in my life was not stopping them. And everybody's just like harassing the cops, calling them Nazis. And I was participating in that. And I apologize if there's any police officers watching. I'm sorry that I ever said anything like that, because I know that you're not supported right now and people targeting you. And I just want you to know that you are supported and that Blue Lives Matter and that everything I said was wrong and that you're not a Nazi and that I was the Nazi. And I apologize for that. I hope that you can forgive me. So riot police show up And everybody just starts going into warrior mode. Like everybody starts locking arms. Like you can see in this picture, everybody's like locking arms. You know, they do this thing and they're like, we're all together, man. Everybody together, man. Because brainwashing only works if everybody says the lies repeatedly over and over again together. Because if you weren't with them, then you would say this is crazy, right? Problem is they're on Facebook all the time. They're getting brainwashed on Facebook. None of them took a goddamn break, dude. They don't want to. I took a break, and that's why I'm not brainwashed. So, after this protest stopped, I had been engaging in the internet troll war with the racist Republicans. And I'm glad that they actually schooled me. Actually, now that I look back, those were my favorite debates with those racist Republicans, man. Yeah. Thanks for being in the debate with me, man, and teaching me. I'm sorry that I was rude. So I want to say maybe 6 or 7 months later, like my friend gave me some really good acid and ate it. I had this really awesome trip by myself. And I don't know why I was just like tripping out about Chinese people, dude. I was like, yeah, Chinese. I like Chinese people, right? And then I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. I've been feminist my entire life. And if I criticize feminism, even though I've been a feminist my entire life, people are going to attack me on the internet. And so I didn't know what like men's rights or red pill or anything was at that point in time. But I knew what Meninism was. I knew it was a joke, you know, because it's like a nerd joke, right? And so I started putting out Meninist quotes. Just making up just funny stuff. And then like people started attacking me on the internet. I'm like, I thought it was really funny because I'm like, dude, I'm a feminist. What are you talking about? Like, this is just a joke, right? But like, it's to them, they can't tell the difference between a joke and a non-joke. To them, it's like angry. You got to understand the mentality of these people. Like they sit around with their text messages in their drama world and they're like, oh, he sent me this text and look, he said this. Oh, yeah, you see, he said that. Oh, yeah, that means this, that means that, right? Oh, yeah, because I'm fucking psychic, right? So, eventually I start coming up with this Meninist Bible. And so it's like, there's like Meninism 3:18. God then said, men can be bitches and hoes too. And then to these people, they're like, oh my God, Carol's losing his mind. I'm just being silly, like absolutely just silly. And the harassment started just getting worse and worse. And then I type really fast, so I'll like respond to whatever you got to say. And eventually the trolling got so bad, I deactivated my account. And then I was like on Twitter and I see some dude wearing like a Make Women Great Again hat. I'm like, whoa, that hat's funny. I hated Republicans still at that point in time, but I'm like, hey, that hat's great, man. And then I looked into it and then, it's like some like manosphere thing. And I'm like, what's this? And I start peering into it, watching their videos and like, they seem like nice guys. I'm like, and they're saying all this stuff about feminism. I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that, man. Whoa, really? And like, and I had realized that these feminists were like angry just by myself. And when I learned about Red Pill, and then I actually I went through and read all their books and stuff, and I didn't find them to be misogynist at all. I found them to be advice that somebody who's been married for a long time would tell you. like, woman, I ain't listening to that. You gonna go get me a sandwich, or you ain't getting no dick. But to them, that's like, oh, he just said she's not gonna get any dick if he doesn't get her a sandwich. Oh my God, he's a misogynist. So, I'm on Twitter, dude, and then like I start posting about this stuff on Twitter, and I'm a programmer, right? And all these programmer trolls feminists, like crazy wackos from the tech industry, start trolling me nonstop for days, weeks. Dude, same person would troll me for 2 or 3 days. It would happen for like months, dude. And just eventually it was so just goddamn stressful. Like, they like ruined my name. And I wrote the world's fastest number printing algorithm. I'm a C++, a lot of people would say I'm an expert. I'm a master, somewhere around in there. But, I have some accomplishments where I have bragging rights. If anybody wants to say I know C++, I can pull out research papers that show you I know C++. So I should be in with these people, right? But they're ivory tower liberals. I didn't know what an ivory tower liberal was back then. And what they are, these people are just so, like, they got really fancy jobs and they're really angry if you don't treat the wham man right. And so they won't hire Republicans. They think Republicans are racist. And they won't hire people with low GPAs. And when they're hiring for people, they don't look for black people. They look for women, Asians, and Latinos. So these people, they might say that they're on your side, but they're white feminists, dude. When they're out at those BLM protests, they're not protesting for BLM. They're protesting for their side to win so they'll get more money. That's what you got to understand about them. So I'm in Eugene. It's a feminist mecca. And I've been off Facebook for a long time. I've been learning myself. I started this Real Simple News with Cale McCullough, which is I read RSS news articles. RSS news is where like all the newspapers publish their articles. So Real Simple News is basically RSS news, is basically what that means. And it's from looking at it, I've been studying the intellectual dark web, and I have uncovered this whole host of just absolutely insane stuff the Democrats have been doing. They've been covering it up, and man, they're whacked out on drugs. Like down there in California, in Hollywood, they're twacked out on cartel drugs, dude. So, in California, man, they're like, they don't want to kick out the illegal immigrants because they're trying to boost their population so that they can increase the number of representatives they have in the U.S. House of Representatives. And I used to think that Republicans were really racist for the whole immigration thing, but as it turns out, actually, like, not all Latinos support illegal immigration. As it turns out, light-skinned Mexicans are actually really racist, and dark-skinned Latinos don't like the racist Latinos because, well, for obvious reasons, they're racist against black people and American Indians. Hold on. Never mind. There's a Northern American Indian or a Norindian, and then there's a Southern American, Sorindian. Yeah, it's hard to say for the first couple of times, but so they're racist against the Sorindians and Norindians, like all the Amerindians. And as it turns out, the legal immigrants actually don't like the illegal immigrants because they think they're line cutters. They want to immigrate their family up here. So the Democrats are all saying, this is racist, we can't enforce our border policy. And as it turns out, a third of Latinos are Republicans, and they all want to build the wall. Because as it turns out, not all Latinos are from the same place. It's true. Not all Latinos like Mexicans. In fact, since over 50% of illegal immigrants are from Mexico, if you don't kick them out, it biases it towards Mexico. And they're the white supremacists, right? So if you're a Brazilian or a Cuban, you're like, or an African, you don't like that, or an Asian, any of the other races, you don't like that, because once the Mexicans take over, California, the 6th largest economy of the world, and then these liberals, they got this really simplistic mindset. They're like, oh, but Mexico used to own California. I'm like, really? You mean the Spanish conquistadors that broke off from Spain and turned into Mexico? You mean the ones that were incredibly racist and owned slaves? As it turns out, that's complete bullshit. Mexico did not exercise control over the region, and there was very few Mexican, as in conquistadors, there was very few of them there. It was mainly just unoccupied territory. The United States came in and seized it. So that most of these narratives they've been pushing out on the left are complete bullshit. Like, like Native Americans, like we're invasive species or something, like Native American, like we took the land from Native Americans. This is freaking crazy, dude. It's like, first off, Native Americans are Asians who walked across a land bridge, followed animals around the woods, and disappeared. Which tribe of American Indians is supposed to control America? What is it, like the Aztecs? How about the tribe that invented the wheel? Oh, I'm sorry, that one didn't exist. They didn't have wheels back then. They didn't have a wheel. Okay, so you're saying you're supposed to control this place. All of y'all people are just wandering around the woods. You came over here from Asia, and then you're saying y'all are the only people who have right to it. And then, as it turns out, most of the Amerindians died of smallpox. So they just died off. And it was like unoccupied land. And they're like, no, you can't kick out the illegal immigrants. Yeah, that's racist. It's like, and then no, the American Indians are the ones that are supposed to. They were the ones, we took their land. It's like, I'm sorry, which way is it? Is it like we're not allowed to kick out the illegal immigrants because that's racist, or white people aren't supposed to be in this country? It's just like, they say no, Amerindians are the only Native Americans. It's like, really? Why don't you go around the world and ask somebody what an American looks like? I bet you they're going to say it looks like a white dude. Or it looks like some hip hop guy, like a gangbanger, or like some person in like a rave costume, or like a punk rocker or something. It's like, one of the last things they're going to tell you is an Amerindian. See, but we're not allowed to exercise control over this country because that's racist. No, Mexicans have to control California because Americans aren't allowed to control it because you're racist. But the messed up thing with this, it's just so messed up, is that they say that because they think the white people are racist. But in the end, it's going to be our children dealing with this. And our children are innocent and they didn't have anything to do with it. Right? So this is the problem with the left. They take out everything on the Republicans and on the white man because they can get away with, because they're marketing to the white feminist. They're like, oh no, you're underpaid. And they're able to basically bully us into doing whatever you want, whatever they want, by saying we're racist, we're sexist. And we got to stop, put a stop to this, because they've been telling us all these lies about Donald Trump. Like, they've been saying he's a Russian asset, that he's because he was like a mob boss because he used to run a casino, and none of these things are true. As it turns out, Donald Trump is a sober family man and a businessman. The reason why Russia put out that information, the false information in the Steele dossier, is because they couldn't get dirt on Donald Trump. They couldn't get compromat on him. And so there's a theory called the QAnon theory. And what that states is basically that there is I don't want to say it's a pedophile network, like the Epstein network. It's not really a pedophile network. Look, all hookers, most hookers start when they're teenagers. So when you have a group of hookers who are 18, you're going to have a group of teenage hookers with them. It's not a conspiracy. That's just how prostitute networks work. But there's a good reason to believe that the Russians were using drugs and teenage hookers in order to get compromat on people such as Bill Clinton, because he was associated with Epstein. And what people are speculating is that they would have them do drugs and have them have sex with a minor, film them having sex with a minor, and then blackmail them. And that's what they're saying with the QAnon thing. And personally, I think if you're a hooker, your parent, it's shame on you, shame on your parents. But that is whack. That's crazy, man. That's absolutely insane. Are they really blackmailing people? That is the most crazy thing out there. So you do have to actually, you got to watch out for all this stuff from the mainstream media, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to sell you articles. They want you to click on the ads, and so what they're going to do is they're going to paint a boogeyman, and that boogeyman is going to fear you into purchasing whatever they're trying to sell you. And then when you're afraid of the boogeyman, because you have to be afraid of the boogeyman, has to be coming to get you, or else you're not afraid of it. So they have to perpetually pump you up with fear. And so that's what they've been doing with the white nationalist boogeyman, with Donald Trump painting him as a white nationalist because they're trying to stop the immigration. And you got to look at it. Why are they shaming him so much on this immigration thing? Because like this, historically, this has never been like a partisan issue. It's always been nonpartisan. And the reason for it is the Chinese Communist Party. They've been involved in the propaganda network. They have been shipping fentanyl in with the cartel to put in heroin to kill American civilians and to dope us out to weaken us. And the Chinese Communist Party, I call them the Chinese Nazi Party because they have a hierarchy and they're ethno-nationalists. So they're actually technically a Nazi structure. They have a massive brainwashing campaign that you have to be aware of. I actually helped uncover this with an AI algorithm. What they've been doing, China has their own internet because they've done so many atrocities that they have to conceal the atrocities that they've done. And they have their own version of Wikipedia. And they have an army of foreign exchange students that come out into our country. And these exchange students, they edit. So they are children of the CCP. They're not like the poor people in China. They're like the privileged people. They are sold on the Chinese Nazi Party propaganda line. So they come into our country and they edit Wikipedia. Their Chinese Communist Party is giving them grants to the universities in order to push this anti-racist, pro-socialist propaganda, because it works out with the propaganda that China's been feeding us forever, trying to paint us as the racist man because we fought communists in Korea and in Vietnam. So they've always been trying to paint us as this KKK boogeyman. So they've become strange bedfellows with the Democrats. And that is where all this stuff is coming from, because the CNP, Chinese Nazi Party, controls companies. And that's why they're Nazis, is because they're at the top of the ivory tower. They have a whole bunch of poor people. They have a whole bunch of Muslims in concentration camps. And so what they don't want you to know that that's a Nazi structure. What they've done is they've done an organized campaign in order to remove blame on the Holocaust from socialism to white supremacy. And so there's this cover up that Stalin did where they didn't find out about it until like maybe less than 20 years ago. Stalin actually was the one that started killing the Jews. Actually, they came into Poland. They did a false flag invasion. I've covered this on the show. It's insane. I've done a lot more research, and it's way. I was almost spot on. So Hitler and Stalin, they were working together to control Europe. Stalin was going to turn into a fascist and be the czar over there. But it was like, and then they did a false flag invasion on Poland. The Russians show up 2 weeks later, and then they round up. Well, the order said 3,500 Polish, the 1% in Poland, because that's what Stalin did, was he rounded up the people and murdered them. Those were the Jews, the 1% Jews. Those were the first victims of the Holocaust. And then they rounded up another, it ended up being 48,000 that died. And then they rounded up another 16,000 and killed them. And that's what turned Hitler into a genocidal maniac. And so, but they lied. Stalin blamed Hitler for this. It's fascinating. So this didn't get uncovered until like less than 20 years ago. They found the order. They found all the stuff. And then somebody that, an American, witnessed it, and they interviewed them, and they found all the evidence. So they've been trying to pin the Holocaust on white supremacy, but as it turns out, it actually wasn't. Germans didn't own slaves. Like Berlin before World War II was one of the least racist places in the entire world. So to say that it was white supremacy is crazy. No, it was ethno-nationalism. What it was this, communism wasn't working out because of the flat hierarchy. So Hitler had to said, no, we need to have a hierarchy. It's not. See, they said that like Marxism was his enemy. That was crazy talk. Like he was a Marxist. Marxist is the class struggle between these two people. No, what it was a strongman battle. They were saying like, I'm Superman, and it's not white supremacy, it's ethno supremacy. Like, I'm superior. It's what the Chinese are doing. It's ethno supremacy. Chinese are trying to be number one, and they're really racist. Not all Chinese, but like CCP people. So, in World War II, people think that it was just Hitler that killed the Jews, but really, it's more complicated than that. Most of Hitler's soldiers were actually communists. Where does this go to? So, back into the CCC propaganda. So they've been trying to cover up how, so basically everything about World War II was all bad stuff for socialism. And whenever Hitler started running out of gas, he invaded Russia. It was like a suicide move. If you study what he did, it was a suicide move. And my AI model predicted suicide. And it turned out it was, I had initially planned that there was like unlimited money because they're socialists, but I didn't take into account the food and the gas, right? Then once I take into account the food and the gas, you realize, oh, that's just like all the other socialists. Once they start running out of food and gas, they start turning on each other, right? They don't want you to know that, right? So what they've been doing, I caught them scrubbing Wikipedia. And what they've been doing is they've been saying, oh yeah, Nazism doesn't have anything to do with socialism. It's all white supremacy. And what they're doing is it's a brainwashing game, dude. They're trying. Well, they don't want you to know that it was socialism that did that, because they are trying to control their people. If their people know that socialism was what caused all of these genocides, they wouldn't be able to control their population. So this is why they have to put out all of these lies. And China wants to weaken us. They want to take out the white man because there's a majority of the fighting age men in America. So the strategy is to hit them with dope, make them poor, make the women rise up and the minorities rise up, and then make the white man rise down the social hierarchy. And this is how they've been structuring that. You gotta look at the advertisements, and you gotta follow the money, because they're companies trying to make money, and they're Chinese Nazi Party controlled companies. And so they've been feeding us propaganda and getting us to turn on each other because it's Marxism. Marxism has this dialectic materialism is what it's called. And it's the class struggle where like the lower class always going to come up and like take over and kill the 1% and take back the country. And so the problem with communism is if they don't do this, it just turns into fascism. If you have a dictator and you can't take out the dictator and the people are not in control, it is textbook fascism. It's far right. But people don't understand, because far right originally meant flat hierarchy on the left with communism at the farthest left, and then extreme hierarchy with Nazism on the farthest right? Because Nazism was, by definition, like killing each other to the top, like strongman ethno-nationalism. That's ethno-supremacy. Not just ethno-national, ethno-supremacy. That's not white supremacy, because the people they fought were white supremacists. Jews, they were white supremacists. Jews were very racist. Jews advocated for genocide. They did. They actually advocated for genocide. And that's why Hitler killed them. He killed them because they were starting to lose the war. They were in concentration camps. They were just mass slaughtering political enemies at that point in time. And then whenever they started to lose the war, then they killed the Jews, because they thought whenever the Jews would get out, they would commit a genocide against their own people. That does not forgive any of what they did, but it paints a completely different story of World War II, of communism, of the left versus the right. Because what happened is in like the 90s, Rush Limbaugh ended up changing left-right to liberal versus conservative. Liberal on the left, conservative on the right. So once you did that, far right doesn't mean the same thing anymore, because far right is like a scale. Almost all of those people are like on the socialist scale. I mean, sure, there's some warlords that'll fit in there, but on the atrocity scale, like that left-right thing is a like socialist thing where like the whole plate, you know, in the middle you got Fidel Castro, you know, not good. None of it's good. But they don't want you to know that. They want you to think so that far right means like Republicans and 3/5 of white males are Republicans. That is what far right is. So what they did is this dirty little trick where in Wikipedia they inserted another group into far right. So far right has historically meant Hitler, Stalin, Mao. But what they've done is they've said anything that's ethno-nationalist or anything that is racist or xenophobic is now far right. And there's a problem with this. The Israelis fit the definition of far right by this definition. The Israelis have a lot of, the Palestinians are in concentration camps. They have a massive difference in the income level between their people. All their people are in the military. They have a hierarchy. Like, they're far right. You can't put the Jews in the same pile as Adolf Hitler. You can't do that. It's not going to work, buddy. It's absolutely not going to work. So the word doesn't have any meaning anymore. So what they've done is on Wikipedia, they've inserted another group into far right. And this allows them to target the boogeyman propaganda to go from a run boogeyman. So run boogeyman means that when you see the boogeyman, you need to be afraid and you need to run because they might fight you off. So the way that you turn a run boogeyman into an attack boogeyman is you change the perception from few to many to few. You change the perception of there are so many of us that we're going to swarm you and we're going to mess you up and you can't do anything about it. And so that's what they've done with Black Lives Matter is what they've done is they've created an attack boogeyman. So what you can do is you can analyze, because when you do this, they have to have a boogeyman, you have to send them to the person that you want to. It's called a boogeyman savior. The boogeyman savior has always been the Democrats. So this is called a boogeyman vector analysis. And so when you look at the boogeyman vector analysis of what they're trying to cover up with the Great Replacement theory or the white genocide, which is really what it is it's a cover for the Democrats are wanting to have a high immigration scenario. Republicans want a low immigration scenario. The difference between them is 70 million people. And so Democrats the game they're playing is they're thinking, 2/3 of the immigrants are going to vote for Democrats. So we're going to go for the high immigration scenario, and then we're going to beat you by controlling Congress with California. And you know what? Fuck you, dude. Yeah, we're good. Those are fighting words right there. Like that. Nah, man. Nah, dude. Like they're going to get crushed, dude. They're just banking on us being able to shame the white man as racist to get whatever they want. So this is what you got to notice of what they're doing. All these BLM Antifa Nazis, they're called BLM Antifa Nazis. They've been shaming you. They're bullying you. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get everything they want. And you got to stop them. You can't let them do that. You can't. They've been people threatening to like attack me at my house, like come to my house where my kid's at. I'm a full-time dad. Come to my house and attack me at my house because they think I'm racist because I don't believe everything that they say. And that's not true at all. Actually, I actually love black people. I'm an engineer and I love working with everybody of all different colors. Indians, Asians, Australians, Europeans, man. Dude, I like those. I like all those ones that are like if people are hating on you and you're a good person, like I got your back, man. Like they hate on me too, dude. We should hang out. But it's a shame tactic, dude. They're just saying you're not allowed to enforce your immigration laws because that's racist. You know what, man? It's illegal to harbor illegal immigrants. If you want to say you want to repeal that law, that's great. But if you're bullying me into not enforcing or promoting, if you're trying to make it so I can't endorse us enforcing our immigration laws, then that is technically harboring illegal immigrants under United States laws. It's actually a felony, minor felony. So what the Democrats have been doing is illegal. They're working with the Chinese Nazi Party and the cartel to funnel in heroin, and methamphetamines and fentanyl into the United States through California and other places across the border. And they're using these Latinos to distribute the drugs. 27% of all federal drug trafficking charges are of Latinos, mostly Mexicans. And what they do is they use them to break up the dope. So you get a human smuggling operation, you break up the dope, you got a shipment of dope, you got a bunch of illegal immigrants, they pay for the housing because they're smuggling them in, and you drop the dope off with them at the house. They just sit there for like some number of months, and then they sell the dope, and then they never talk to the person ever again. And that's how their dope smuggling network is working. And so if you don't kick out the illegal immigrants, Mexico takes over California, and they bring in a massive amount of dope. It's not every Latino. Not all Latinos are the same. But 27% of all federal drug trafficking charges are from Latinos, almost all Mexicans. So you do have to go off of the statistics. America is for Americans, and Donald Trump is not a racist. So with that, I'm going to sign out. Thank you for watching Real Simple News and hearing my story about how I started the Portland anti-Trump protest in 2016. And you should check out the Walk Away campaign. It's awesome. I think that those people are great. They are all about de-radicalizing politics and just walking away and be like, yo, bro, I don't have to vote for you. You can bully me all you want, but I'm never going to vote for you again, buddy. So until next time, you have been watching Real Simple News. My name is Cale McCullough, captain of the Kabuki Starship, which is a metaphor. My startup company is called Kabuki Starship. We do have an open source spaceship, but I am a captain of a sinking ship. And until next time, like I say every time, farewell, aloha, sayonara, Godspeed, and yeah. Godspeed in your journeys.